The judge sentenced the 5-year-old girl's mum to 84 years in prison, citing that this was the most horrific and heartbreaking case the court had ever seen. Aurora, Colorado is a city built on the promise of a quiet suburban life. But in late May 2023, that silence was shattered by a discovery inside an apartment on Lola Street. A discovery that challenged our fundamental understanding of maternal instinct. The victim was Maha Li Hobbs. She was 5 years old. At an age where she should have been mastering her ABCs and playing in the spring sun, Maha Li was living a nightmare curated by the one person meant to protect her own mum, 27-year-old Alexis Taniel Nelson. The case began not with a scream but with a lie. On the 30th of May, Nelson called 911 to report that she had given her daughter up for adoption to a woman she met online. It was a desperate, thin narrative that investigators saw through almost immediately. When detectives pressed for records or contact information for this mystery adopted mother, the story dissolved. When Aurora police entered the apartment, they weren't met with the chaos of a struggle. They were met with the smell of decay. Inside a utility closet hidden away like rubbish, they found a plastic tote. Inside that container was the remains of the little girl. The forensic details are harrowing. This was not a sudden act of passion, but the culmination of profound neglect and escalating violence. An autopsy revealed that Maha Li was severely malnourished, her small body showing the physical toll of prolonged starvation. But the cause of death was more direct. The coroner identified multiple blunt force injuries. Her tiny frame was covered in bruises, some old, some new, indicating a cycle of abuse that had become her daily reality. Perhaps the most chilling was the evidence of what happened after she took her last breath. In an attempt to conceal the crime, Nelson had begun the process of disposing of the body. Evidence suggested an attempt to burn the remains inside the apartment, a desperate act of desecration that failed, leading her to hide the child in the closet where she would eventually be found. We often look for a why, we look for the breaking point, but in the case of Alexis Nelson, the motive remains a void. Neighbours described a woman who was often reclusive, but nothing signalled the level of depravity unfolding behind closed doors. In June 2024, the legal system provided a cold formal closure. Nelson pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, tampering with a deceased human body, and attempt to influence a public servant. She was sentenced to 84 years in prison. The judge described the case as one of the most horrific and heartbreaking the court had ever seen. Maha Li Hobbs didn't have a voice in the apartment. She didn't have a witness. She was a child who slipped through the cracks of the world, ending up in a plastic bin in a dark closet. We tell her story not to dwell on the macabre, but to ensure that her name is remembered for more than the way she died.